Oh, hello and welcome back to PS Paul Stewart. I'm Paul and I'm your host today. And today we're going to be introducing Annwyn. She's in New Zealand and a wonderful healer and facilitator. And but let me tell you a little bit about myself before we do, Annwyn. And I'm Paul. I'm based in Tokyo. I've been a facilitator of personal training, healing, empowerment for consciously 25 years, but even coaching from a very young age of perhaps about 12, and with sports and things with children. And I've had a wonderful time adventuring and exploring consciousness and the world. And it's led me to many discoveries and given me tools that I've shared with others. And it's really worked. And I also acknowledge that there's so many different ways, and as souls, we've got so many different gifts. And that brings me to our guest today, Annwyn. It's a real pleasure to welcome you today, Annwyn. Thanks for being here.
Hey, what a joy. Thank you for the invitation. I'm delighted.
Yeah.
And
yes.
It's going to be fun.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, Annwyn, where are you? Let's tell people where you are and what you're doing.
Okay, well, I'm a tiny little village called Tokanu, and that is right at the southern end of a lake that some listeners might know, Lake Taupo, which is quite a famous lake in the very centre of the North Island of New Zealand. So, you know, there's the two islands, the North Island and the South Island. And if you go to the map and you see this big lake right in the middle of the North Island, that's Lake Taupo. It's so big it looks like an ocean when you're standing on the shore. But I'm right at the very southern end of that, in a tiny little village that has a lot of geothermal activity because we're actually living in the volcanic region and near the mountains. People might know about the Tongariro crossing, which is quite a famous thing to do in New Zealand. So I live about 30 minutes from there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I can testify it's a beautiful part of the world. I've actually done the Tongariro crossing across the top of the mountain.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
It's marvelous being next to Mount Narahoe, the Cone volcano, and I know New Zealanders will love hearing about it. And I think a lot of people watching are going to start to want to go to New Zealand right away. Of course, they might be able to, but it's still there. And
yeah.
you've run retreats and things, haven't you? Could you tell us a bit about the themes of your retreats or intentions of retreats?
Yes, thank you. Yes, quite often I'll offer what I call a circle of 12. And I actually came up with that name, and then I realized about 2 years after that Cryon was using the same name on his online gatherings, which is a beautiful healing on Wednesday, circle of 12. I thought, okay, that's fine, you know.
Yeah, but
Spirit often
Spirit
inspires us at the same time.
Yes. Yeah. You were first, I think.
So the circle of 12, 12 is the number of creation. That's kind of at that mathematical formula basis of everything in creation. And also it just suits the property to have a lovely group of 12. So typically on an equinox or a solstice or another power date like the Lion's Gate, I offer some kind of an event here, and people would come. 12 of us would gather and just have beautiful food. I love the raw, natural, vegan food and really high vibrational food, nutritious, high vibrational food. We do meditation. We allow spirit to guide us to go to a lake, to go to a mountain. We have a very special little lake very close to here. Have you have heard of Lake Rotokonamu, Paul?
Yes.
Tiny little lake, and so it sits between the big lake of Lake Taupo that I just mentioned, and between that and the mountains is this tiny little lake, and it only takes about an hour and a half to walk around. It's that small, but boy, does it pack a punch. Oh. It's actually one of the spinner vortices of the planet. So you may know that each of the elements of air, fire, water, earth has what they call a spinner vortex that represents each element, and it holds the blueprint of that element. So, for example, Giza, the Pyramid of Giza, is the place of air. It's the spinner vortex for air. Mount Haleakala in Hawaii is the spinner vortex for fire. naturally, all the volcanics and the fire. And Table Mountain in South Africa is the spinner vortex for Earth. So guess what that leaves? Water. So this little tiny lake, just 10 minutes from where I live, is the spinner vortex for water. What that means is that the original blueprint, when water was created on our planet, the original pattern or formula, if you like, is still held there in the higher version of that lake. And so as Gaia is ascending, everything is going into a higher vibration and version, including all of the elements. And so water apparently has quite a different nature to how we experience water now. In its higher form, it's like a little dance. It kind of sings and dances, and it's just clear and full of information. So
well,
yeah,
you can sense that in the mountain streams and the geysers and the
yeah,
cascade waterfalls through a forest. You can really sense the lightness, and it lifts people. But you know, that makes me think. Let's expand on it a bit, because I'm just thinking of listeners. For some people that's very familiar language. For others, it's going to be, well, yeah, I'm enjoying, but I've got no idea what you're talking about. And it makes me think, what sort of people do you get on your retreat? So what do they come loaded with knowledge? Do they need to, or do you feel, hey, let's work with what's there?
Yeah, that's a lovely, lovely question to ask. And I would say that people get drawn for different reasons to different retreats. And so there usually is a mix of levels of awareness, let's say. And but you know, how can you even say that? Because we're masters in some things and we're apprentices in others. So we've all got something that we're going to learn from each other. But there'll always be a particular vibration that's going to call people into a particular event. So you might have people who have been awakened just for a year or two and are still what we will call a seeker in the seeking stage. And then we've got others who've been walking their pathway of their inner journey for many, many years. Yet still, there's always more. And as you know, you can repeat and we'll sort of revisit the same kind of topics, but always be gaining a much greater depth and insight into what that really is about. There's always more.
Yeah, it makes me think of the leadership of the, in your case, you initiating or leading or facilitating an event like that. The intention of it brings out, just the clear intention, or even just the established clarity as you go ahead and create it the way you feel to create it. It sets up something, doesn't it?
It does. And it's interesting because several years ago, most of the light workers, if you advertised an event, you'd be very specific about it and you'd word it in particular ways. And I've sort of come through a process of, I moved away from that and I just left things very open. And that's fine too, because there's always an unfolding. But then I've learned again to return to that really clear setting of purpose and intention, because that's how energy moves, doesn't it? It moves with our focus, it moves with our intention. And so now, even though it's still a very brief introduction to whatever I do make sure it has a lot of purpose around it. And that again carries out, it's like a ritual. It's part of the ritual of creating anything at all.
Well, just before we began, we talked a little bit. I mentioned how I've got a painting I did of a shrine gate, and how one enters a shrine deliberately. Maybe it's like letting go the day-to-day things for a moment and just coming to presence and just enhancing that sacred feeling of life, which is always there. But it's that focused time. We all know we need that sort of thing. So
that's right.
Yeah. I had a look at your beautiful website, and I encourage people to do so. I'm going to attach a link, Annwyn. And but hang on, people. Let's listen to the interview first. And I do love the idea of people sitting back and putting aside distractions and just letting themselves have an experience of listening. And anyway, you've got some wonderful, nice, short, very reader-friendly articles on there. Are you doing a bit of writing? I know you are, so let's talk about it.
Yeah. Yes, I am. So I guess if under the umbrella, if I was to say, well, who is Annwyn and what's Annwyn about, I would say that I'm an activator, and that's my umbrella. So what does that mean? It means that I'm being activated myself at the moment.
Okay, you go
so,
ahead.
so for your audience who aren't familiar, because I receive a lot of energy while we're doing a broadcast like this, because I set my intention before the show to be open to transmit and talk about the things that were going to really benefit the audience most.
Yes.
And so when I receive energy, it hits my energy field, my central nervous system. So if you see me lurching a bit, we're not having an earthquake. we do have a lot of those here, but it's just me receiving energy. So that's what that is. And I just was feeling some then. And you, as the listener, you might feel the same thing happening to you as well. It could be a little tinglings around your head, or you just might feel very sleepy. You might even fall asleep. That happens a lot. And it just means that there's another layer of vibration. We'll be making sure that you stay awake, Paul. But as these vibrations come in, sometimes they're very new for your energy field, and your nervous system's adjusting. So it can make you feel quite sleepy or tired. It can also make you feel really awake and alert. So everybody responds differently, and you might not feel anything at all. And you think, well, nothing happened. And then the next day you go, wow, suddenly you have insight to something, or you see something in a much broader way than you did before. So that's my role. I'm an activator. I activate the awakening in the soul. So a lot of my work speaks to the soul of the person. And because a lot of my work comes through sound, which can be just speaking like this, but it can also be what we call light language, which is when you hear this is the language of sound. And for example, that's something that like that. So it doesn't mean that we have to understand what that means. It's a vibration that's being transmitted, and whoever needs it will pick it up, and your soul will know exactly what to do with that. Then the other way I work is through the words. So coming back to the writing, that's another big part of my work as an activator, because when we're writing in a very conscious way, and I have a ritual around my writing before I sit down at the keyboard. I invite in my team, and I ask for all the parts of my soul that are aligned with this writing, whether it's a blog or Facebook or a blog on my website, or the book that I'm currently writing, my second book. I invite them in and I say, please overlight me, please inspire me, bring me the words, bring me the vibrations that you want to transmit through these words. So when people are reading the words, they're often actually getting an activation. They're what we call encoded or encrypted with specific energy formulas. So yeah, that's my work in a nutshell.
I know you're working on a second book because you've been so kind to actually share some of those pages on your Facebook page. But what about your first book? What was that about? And because I think it taps into perhaps hearing about how this began for you, and where did it come from, and what was before that. What do you want to share there?
Oh boy, thank you, because when I think about how I awoke, so let's talk about my awakening. I call it a rude awakening, the one where you get a shock, where something really, really huge happens in your life, and it pulls the carpet up from under your feet, and your life is turned upside down from one moment to the next. And I think it's so relevant. I wrote the book in 2012, and really it's still so relevant for today, because the whole planet is now going through a rude awakening. And so and my guides kind of led me to know today that we would speak about this. So thank you for asking, because it opens the way perfectly to talk about the grief on the planet. So going back to my first book and what made me write that first book.
Oh, thank you. There we go. Let's have a look. I will put a link for this for people. Just down a fraction.
So it's called Dry Your Tears. A Mother Finds the Gift of Love Through Grief. And it's out of print at the moment. I'll be reprinting after I do my next book, but it is available as an ebook. So if you don't mind reading an ebook, I can, the link can go out for that. It'd be wonderful because it's so relevant. You see, what happened, I was a completely unawakened soul. And then at the age of 45, my very materialistic, very mundane, very ordinary, perfectly normal human life was just taken upside down because my teenage son, Tim, who was just nearly 17, he died in a car crash one afternoon. And yeah, what a huge shock. We all talk about it as your worst nightmare and all that kind of thing. And we talk about it in a way that it's something that you never recover from and so forth. But an extraordinary thing happened, the very, very night where he died in the afternoon. And then by the evening, the most terrible part was having to tell his sister, Laura. They were about 18 months apart. She was younger. And that was actually the hardest part for me, was to bring her that news. And after I had, and she was sleeping, I cried and cried and cried, and she was sleeping, I became aware that something had arrived, like something had entered my awareness that I had not known about before. And I felt this incredible sort of layer, a new layer coming forward. I was grieving. I mean, I was this mother grieving this, just shock and horror, really. But also I felt this incredible, beautiful layer of, I didn't have the words for it at the time. I had no idea what it was. I couldn't speak to you about it the way that I can speak now because I didn't have the language. It was completely new and foreign. But I felt it. It was undeniable. And it felt beautiful. It felt very calming and loving. And I just thought, wow, that must be the angels, because that's all I knew about was maybe there's angels. But I thought that must be the angels. And I loved how I felt. And I felt this little flicker of excitement, like something's happening, there's something going on here. And that was the very, very first conversation with my soul. That was my soul speaking to me. So that was my time to awaken. And that was the way that I had chosen with my son, Tim, to awaken. And it's a really brutal way of awakening. That's why I call it a rude awakening. But I feel that the whole planet is now going through this. Now, some years after Tim died, 12 years after he died, the city that I lived in was Christchurch of New Zealand.
Oh.
And you know what I'm going to say? Massive earthquakes. Were you living in New Zealand then, Paul?
No, I was in Kuwait.
Kuwait. Well out of it. You obviously didn't need to go through it, because if you did, you would have been.
I'm pretty clever like that.
I was out of the country. The first shakes that they had, I was in Dublin. And but about 3 months later, the really big ones happened that took the whole city down, and that's when a lot of people died. And then I was kind of, where I was living was not safe, and so I was offered house sitting immediately, and I just got literally lifted out of that earthquake zone and just lived on the outskirts of the city where very little damage had occurred, and I was living in beautiful houses. And that's when my guide said, okay, time to write your book. And I thought, well, what am I writing about? And I thought, I'd just done like an amazing 10-week journey through England and Sweden and Ireland. And I thought, okay, I guess I'm writing about that. So I started writing about that. And meanwhile, I was watching the news and the people brokenhearted in Christchurch. They'd lost their city, their homes, their neighborhoods, their careers, their incomes, their hopes, their dreams, their loved ones too. And suddenly it was like, oh my gosh, I saw the face of grief on the TV screen, and I thought, the grief, they need the book, because I had just come through my journey of grief. I was out the other end, and I recognized it, and I thought, oh my goodness, I know what I'm writing about. So that's what I wrote my book about. The grief, I took people through the journey of grief, but I also took them through the journey of my awakening as a soul. And it was so incredibly beautiful. And that's why, you know, by the end of my grieving time, I was able to write, "A mother finds the gift of love." The gift of love through grief. How is that possible? It's possible, my friends. And this is what we're doing right now on the planet, because this is what Mary Magdalene talked about. It's the great heart piercer. Piercing of the heart, the opening of the heart is grief. Now, grief happens in so many different ways. Through loss of a loved one, obviously, but through loss of our health, our home for a refugee, a loss of a status for somebody who's become unemployed, a loss of income, a loss of our health, a loss of so many things that we have, a loss of a relationship. So grief comes in many shapes and forms. And I see now, you know, what happened to me on a personal level, then I witnessed happening in Christchurch to a whole city. We're now seeing happening on a planetary scale like we've never seen before. But it's the same process. And I think if we can remember that and bring it back to our individual self, perhaps that will be less overwhelming for people, because we can always choose to work on ourselves, and we can always choose, well, how am I going to respond to this?
Yes.
Okay, I can see everybody on Facebook talking about that. I can see the politicians and the journalists talking about that. But is that my experience? Is that what I'm wanting to learn from this journey? So I think it's a really poignant time in the journey of all of humanity, that this is time to really get to know yourself, because all of those things that you thought defined you, in the same way that I had, I thought that I was defined by, first of all, my children, my role as a mother, as my work as a volunteer in the community, as my job as a teacher, you know, all of those things. But they all got taken away from me because I actually went sailing for 6 years. I literally ran away to sea.
With a bottle of rum.
Yeah, my daughter took every drug under the sun. She was a teenager, and this is her version. How did you and your mother cope when Tim died? Oh, she says, well, I took every drug under the sun, and my mother went sailing.
She's gonna love you doing that.
So I actually lived on a yacht for 6 years, and I learned to sail, and I eventually ended up in relationship with a lovely man on this yacht, and it was a very calm relationship, and we'd known each other many, many lifetimes. And I arrived on board with my persona of who I thought I was, and I'd actually even invented my name because I didn't want to be the grieving mother, right? So I gave myself a name of Corky, because to someone at the door, Corky. Actually, it was from a family name, McCorkindale, but Corky is buoyant, hey, it floats. Like, it's kind of suits being on the sea. So yeah, popping all those corks. Yeah. And anyway, so I was Corky, and I remember when we first set sail together, we were in Fiji, and he looked over at me and he said, "So I wonder who Corky really is." And I felt a little go across my spine, because it was like he could see right through me, and he was there in his soul contract role. He was there to help me completely dismantle, first of all, this Corky persona that I built up, because I actually built up a new personality when I didn't want to be the grieving mother. Yeah. I just reinvented myself. I reinvented myself as a bulletproof ocean adventurous called Corky. Well, he never called me Corky. Never. In 6 years we were together. Never called me Corky. And he just took out that wall that I built up, brick by brick by brick, until there was nothing much there. And in my book, I write about it as the babushka doll. You know, the Russian painted doll?
Yes.
You know, those wooden dolls? And you take off one and you take another, and she gets tinier and tinier. Well, I felt like that until there was like just this tiny little bit left. And I thought, well, who am I? That's really scary. When you get to that point, that is really scary. And that's what we call the dark night of the soul. And I want to tell the listeners, that's what you're going through at the moment. That's where you are at the moment, because you've had your freedom taken away from you. You've had jobs taken away from you. You've had relationships taken away. You've had income taken away. You've had your perceived security taken away. And it's really raw and fragile where you are right now. But you know what the good news is?
The captain's back in town. Tell us the good news, Annwyn.
Was it a little bit more profound than that? Well, yes, you're right. The captain is back in town. The captain is the God spark, your little spark of light that never goes out. And when you get stripped down to that far down, till you just are that little tiny bit of light that's always there, that's your opportunity. And you say, okay, take a breath. This is when you take the leap of faith, and you still don't know what's happening. But luckily, I found Eckhart Tolle's book, The New Earth.
Yes.
And I recommend, if anybody is yet to read that book, go read it. If you want to know what's going on with your mind and trying to release the thoughts that are, circling around in your head at the moment, hop into that book. It's such a brilliant book. And it was like, he saved my sanity. I literally thought I was going insane. I had no idea who I was anymore. And this is what I'm hearing people saying around the planet. They don't know who they are anymore. But you see, the beautiful thing is that we have to strip down. We have to release all of these layers to get back to that tiny little spark of light. And then we start building up our new babushka doll. But this time, she's not painted by somebody else, or he's not painted by somebody else. You are the director. You are the creator. You design your babushka doll. You design it in exactly how you really are. And for the first time ever, you have an authentic you. And that was one of the treasures that I took away from that journey of grief. And I invite others to look for that treasure as well, because it's all there. Grief is a really difficult journey, but it's also one with the greatest rewards. It's a treasure chest full of treasure. If you're willing to open it up, feel the pain, because you do have this pain there, treasure chest. There's pain. But you have to reach a point where you can sit next to your pain and put your arm around it. Say, okay, I feel you. I hear you. You're mine. I claim you. I'm responsible for you. I created that too. And I love you because you've shown me so much where I've been and what I've done and what is now time to let go of and release. And so that was my journey of grief. And my beautiful son, who's now my main guide in spirit, I just say that was the most incredible gift he could give me, was to leave in the way that he did, because I don't know what I'd be doing now if he hadn't. Maybe I would still be a very physical orientated, materialistically busy, occupied, non-authentic me. So yeah, I give him great thanks. I thank him every day. And of course, when you get to that point, when you go down the journey that I went, you realize there is no separation. You realize there is no death. And, his words to me was, Mum, there are no endings. He taught me about the eternal life of the soul. And he taught me about, you only grieve when you're grieving from your human nature that still perceives yourself as being separate from all other things. But now in my journey, and I think this is where a lot of other people are starting to go to now, we're realizing from our much higher perspective and our higher version of ourselves that there is no ending. There's no ending to any journey. There's no ending to the stories. There's no separation. We just move in and out of life. And that can be life on this planet. It can be life back at source as pure energy. It can be life on other planets. But it's all the same big story of a soul, an incredible soul, and the way that we experience ourselves as consciousness.
Annwyn, obviously there's going to be a lot of individual differences. Well, 8 billion for sure. And people will be at different points, and people might experience grief today. It could be just an argument with a friend, could be a feeling of grief, or some of the worldly topics that are going on, the things we're seeing, and or someone might be in quite a strong experience of grief that's lasting days and weeks and months. So from a point of, okay, I've had, like in your case, I've had that quite profound experience, and I've lived it, and I've observed it for many years, and I've reflected on it, and I've evolved it, and so on. What's a stepping stone for people that are in that point now, rather than, you know, okay, you can come here? Yeah,
absolutely. The first stepping stone is the surrendering to the grief, and surrendering and allowing the pain. Because you see, one of the reasons for writing my book was to make it a shorter journey for others, because I avoided my pain for the first 6 years or so. And when I became Corky, it really, I know. So silly.
You call you Captain Morgan. It's brilliant. It's a great adventure, I've got to tell you.
So when I became Corky, it was impossible for my soul to talk to me. It was impossible for my guides to help me, because I'd really just gone boom and put a brick wall in front of my heart. Now, the thing about grief, it wants to open your heart. That's the whole point. It wants to open your heart, because as humans, we've had so many lifetimes. You know, we have thousands and thousands of incarnations, and very often they've been in very dark times and troubled times on the earth. And so we have learnt over many, many lifetimes to close our hearts down as a matter of survival. In this lifetime, it's really essential that our heart opens, because that's the way we ascend. You know, the only way we can move up into a higher dimension of being, a higher vibration of consciousness, is through the heart space. And so the very first part of grief is to, first of all, acknowledge that you've got these incredible emotions running riot through you. And, you know, people tend to suppress that through medication, alcohol, work, running away sailing, and all of those above things, drugs for my daughter. But you see, it keeps you stuck. It keeps you stuck. And very often people don't actually heal their grief. They learn to live with it till it becomes like a comfortable level, and they can just keep it at bay until a favorite song comes on and it triggers them and they melt into a pool of tears. We learn to accommodate grief. We learn to adjust our lives around it. But that's not healing grief. And then other people just shut down. They just shut down, and they become literally the walking dead. And they just become robotic in life, and they completely shut their heart and throw away the key. And we've done that out of it as a matter of survival in many, many lifetimes. But in this lifetime, there has never been more focus on the heart. Have you noticed it? You know, the books, the writings of people, the teachings, we know now it's all about the heart, because the heart ascends first in our body, the heart and the heart chakra, and then the rest follows. But the heart must ascend first, because we're heading into what we call a fifth dimensional, multidimensional way of living, and the entry is through the heart consciousness, which is all about oneness and inclusivity and divine neutrality and compassion and all of those things. The heart does not divide, the heart does not judge, the heart does not separate. That's the mind, the human mind, that has done that to us for so long. And now we're having to harness that mind in. And again, we've got these wonderful teachers like Eckhart Tolle and, you know, the wonderful mindful teachers, really learning to master and be in charge of our thoughts, and to not let that monkey mind take over like it used to, and to actually allow our hearts to open enough to feel the pain and to heal the pain, and then to have this incredible capacity to love, to receive love, and to give love like you've never had before. There's not much love on the planet, you know. There's not much real love on the planet. It's conditional love, you know. Yeah.
But I think from our own personal experiences, it can change in a heartbeat. So,
literally, yes.
Yes. I'd like you to share a couple of examples of things you've seen happen to people around you, or loved ones, or even clients, or where you're seeing these changes happen, and what did they do? Obviously, we're going to not give their names, but let's hear some concrete things that you've noticed. How did that happen for people? Sorry to put you on the spot.
That's all right. I have to feel into that for a minute. Just feel a really good one. Okay, well, I remember one of the younger women, a woman maybe in her late 30s, yes, at a retreat with us, and she had felt very, very, she had mixed feelings about coming. Like, she really wanted to come on the retreat. She'd never done anything like it before, but she was also quite terrified. Now, that's a classic example of you've got some good, deep inner soul work to be done. When you feel really drawn to something, but you're going, you know that there's stuff going to be pulled out. And so it happened. She came. It was a 3-day retreat, and on the second day, we did a really big, beautiful piece of work up in the mountains, and then I took them all to that little lake that I just told you about, Lake Rotopanamu, and I just took them there for a ceremony, and then just to come back down and rest. But she and a few others decided to walk all the way around it. Now, she came back very tired, and because she was tired and because of the energy work that we'd already done, she was raw. She was open, and she had a meltdown. So she began to cry, really, really howl and sob and cry. She had no idea why. She had no idea why. And I think she was able to find search back in her memory and find something had come forward in her memory. I can't remember what it is now anyway. But she had like a cathartic experience. And then when that passed through, she just described the most incredible sense of peace. She literally felt expanded in this, physically around the heart area, which is the heart chakra influencing it, of course. But she felt so clear in her mind and so peaceful in her mind. And actually, I just had an email from her the other day, and she said that she's noticed that she can hold space for people. Like when a neighbor had actually come in to talk to her about something, and something quite controversial, maybe it was about the vaccination or something, and she didn't say anything. She just held him in her heart, and she saw his lips about to say something and then just changed. And he just went in a completely different direction. And it was, very peaceful, amicable situation. So because she had cleared a lot of grief, whatever it was, from her own heart, suddenly she had this wonderful other space that other people can literally sit in for a while when you need to be held by somebody who's already got that love vibration going on. You can literally offer that to them as a safe holding space, if you like.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It just gives us a reminder. We often think I think so many people on the planet want to make a difference. I mean, I'd be surprised if you could find someone that didn't answer the question yes if you asked them, do you want to make a difference? But I think it's good to contemplate, well, what's the way I can do it, and what's it powerful, what works? What do you think works?
Yeah. Being peace yourself, being at peace. And this is, on the live broadcast that I did the other night, I was talking about divine neutrality, which is just a lovely way of saying, don't react, stay neutral, stay, you don't react emotionally with strong emotions or strong thoughts. You just keep that middle pathway that Buddha was the wonderful teacher about walking the middle path. So, if you need to be inspired by Buddha and get a book and read some of his beautiful teachings. But it's about, as I was saying before, letting the heart be the master of the mind, because the mind has been given free range just to go bleh, and usually it's a judgment, isn't it? It's immediately our mind wants to come in and make a judgment about something, or see the difference about something, and one has to be right and one has to be wrong. Of course, that's the old way of duality on the old planet, the old energies. But we're now moving into a place where it's okay, you can be different. There is no right, there is no wrong, there just is. And we're all here. I think a great way to remember is that we're all here as magnificent souls, and to start seeing each other as souls. So I don't just see Paul sitting there, I see this incredible light being who had to get permission to come onto the planet to be here at this time, because not everybody was granted the privilege of being on a planet that is going through an upshift in consciousness, and that's what we're doing. So to do that, we're having to move from the old consciousness, which was very mind orientated, the human mind, which is based around separation and fear, and we're having to move into this beautiful inclusive consciousness of oneness, where there is no fear and there is no separation. But it comes back to thinking, okay, where did that thought come from? Did that come from my mind, or did that come from my heart? Did that come from the old energies of fear, or did that come from the new energies of compassion? So we can be monitoring ourselves all of the time. And then you finally get to a point where you don't really have to monitor yourself. You've actually shifted. You've moved into a different way of being. And this is what people are doing now. And we've got all the raw material to do it with.
Yes. Well, it makes me think the power we have to create and direct and, to be. I think people might be a little gun shy when they look back at what humanity's created with some of the wars and destruction and negativity and so on. And people might be just a little gun shy, but I love to think, well, actually, let's remember, people are actually very good. I mean, did you ever meet a child that you think is evil? I mean, it just doesn't happen. I mean, people get out of balance and people get influenced and conditioned, but people are not bad. So, but people have different ways. And, what do you think is going to help people now with moving into, hang on, I'm good and I can create. And I don't need everyone to agree with me to do it,
I think if so long as you're creating from your heart and you're creating from a place of an outcome for the benefit of all, then you can't go wrong. And, yes, we have done some pretty interesting creations on this planet, but it's only a very tiny minority on the planet who have misused the creation energies in the way that they have been misused. Tiny percentage. And it's still only a tiny percentage who are on the planet doing that. And they're the ones that are, gasping for breath at the moment, because humanity is awakened. Humanity, the lights have been turned back on again. And if we remember that we are an aspect of, people get a little bit when you mention the word God, but I use God in the most broadest sense, and I think of God as a formula of energy, a vibrational formula of energy, and people might be more comfortable thinking of source energy, the great central sun energy, the creation energy, whatever that might be for you. But it's all about energy. It's all energy. We are consciousness, and consciousness is energy. And we happen to be consciousness in the body at the moment. And when we first came onto the planet, we were very pure in our consciousness, and we were very still connected to our, what we call our God nature, or our source nature. But over time, as we experimented with all of the range of energies on the earth, this is a nutshell version, we became more engaged. We became more engaged with what we now call our human nature. And our human nature does tend to be activated and triggered by fear and separation, because that has been sort of cultivated and seeded into the consciousness over a very long time. Now we're unraveling what has been, pulling out what has been planted in that garden of humanity and sowing a new garden. And we can do it. And this time we're remembering, you see, we've forgotten that we are these creators. And then, of course, we've had to deal with the dogma of religion, which has said, well, no, there's only one creator, and you have to use us as the bridge to get to, back to heaven if you're a good girl. And we've sort of forgotten that we are actually creators ourselves. So it's a lot to take in, isn't it? It's huge what's happening on the planet. It really is huge. Yeah.
I think any individual that has a bit of a tweak or an opening has changed humanity, and people can be encouraged to take the openings that feel natural to them, can't they?
Yeah, that's right, and follow that. So whatever, if it comes as a little insight into something, or a little inspiration about something, that's the point of consciousness, and you follow it like a thread and see where that goes. And you don't have to know where it's going to end up or how that's going to look. If it feels right, and this is one of the keys to navigating life at the moment, is the feeling, because that's our soul talking to us through feelings. That's the communication. So if it feels aligned with you and it makes you feel good, you feel peaceful, you feel relaxed, feel excited, then follow that thread, see where that goes. And it'll take you to a certain place, and then you have a look around there, and you don't need to be in a hurry to do the next bit. You just see what then arrives, and then you follow that. So it becomes a very organic, fluid way of living life through feeling rather than reacting to emotions, because emotions belong to the human nature, feelings belong to our God nature.
Yes. Perhaps some of the beauty of this time, where, like you mentioned with grief, when you get to this nothing, or circumstances in your life, nothing, well, what do you got to lose? And it probably even makes it a little easier to explore, what do I really feel? Who do I really want to be, isn't it? And of course, if you've got a lot of things and a lot of distractions, it can be a bit tougher, but even people with a lot can still decide, hang on, I'll put it all down for a minute and just have some silence, right?
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, indeed.
Well, I want to ask you, Annwyn, I wondered if you'd like to share an experience with people, but, as a lovely facilitator that you are, do you think it would be nice for people to actually do a little contemplation or meditation?
Why not? Yeah. We could do a beautiful little meditation that my guides popped into my memory when I was preparing to come on, and it's something I hadn't thought about for many years. So I thought, okay, well, it's one that's they think is going to be appropriate for our audience. So let's do it. It's
okay. I just want to say I'm so happy you will do that, and I just thank the viewers, because these sort of things, they make a big difference. I mean, we can't measure it in mind terms, and that's the beauty of it. Just be open, and I encourage people to just be open. And thanks for being here. I just want to say that for some reason, but here we are. You go right ahead.
I think that's lovely, because it's not just about you. You're in Tokyo on your side of the screen. I'm in New Zealand on my side of the screen. There's all of the souls that will have been called in to participate, whether they see this the moment it goes live, or whether they see it as a replay, or whether they don't even see it, but they're still feeling and being affected by the vibrations that you and I are creating through this broadcast, and through then the collective of the other souls that it ripples through, because this is the spirit of oneness. Whatever we do affects everybody else. So yeah, thank you for saying that. It's really beautiful. All right, so I'm going to take you through a lovely little meditation. It's about the formulas of peace and love and oneness. And so I invite you to just close your eyes and just settle into your chair or lying on the floor, wherever you feel comfortable and relaxed. And just take 1 or 2 deep breaths through your nose, breathing in through the nose and breathing out through the nose. Taking the breath a little deeper, a little slower than your ordinary breath. A very purposeful breath of lowering yourself down into a slower way of being, into a quieter place that lets your central nervous system know that it can relax, that you are safe, that all is well, and that you're being held in a beautiful sacred space of peace and love and oneness. Now I'd like you to visualize in front of you a golden pyramid a three-sided golden pyramid with 3 points. And so at the top apex, the top point, we have the vibration of peace. And I'd like you to explore how it feels to be utterly and completely, totally at peace. And you can use your breath, remember, to help you with this by continuing to do the slow, deep breathing in and out through your nose. Breathing in peace, breathing out peace. Breathing in peace, breathing out peace. How does that feel to you to be at peace with whatever is in your mind at the moment? Whatever is occurring in your day or in your whole life at the moment? Can you simply be at peace with it? Can you reach a place where you don't need to judge it or condemn it or allow it or say it's right or wrong or worry about it or be confused by anything, but just to simply know that it's okay, just to in this moment believe that it's okay, just be at peace. I'm at peace with this. I am at peace with this. I am peace. I have no thoughts about this anymore. I have no emotions about this anymore. I have no idea where this is going to end up, but in this moment right now, as I breathe in peace. And I breathe out peace. Because when I breathe in, I receive life. And when I breathe out, I give back to life. So I choose to breathe in peace. And I choose to return peace out there to my life. All right. So now let's go down to one of the corners, the base of the golden pyramid. And in this corner, we're exploring the vibration of love. And it is not the human conditioned love, the love that depends on you or others meeting certain criteria of acting, of being in a certain way, perceived in a certain way, meeting approval by certain things. It is not that human conditioned version of love that we have been led to believe is love on the planet. We're going to the love of the cosmos, the love of source, the love of creation, the love that created you, and the love that makes you the most powerful creator on the planet. For love is the most powerful energy. So again, returning to breath. And this time you might want to place your hand on your heart in the center of your chest. I'm talking about the heart chakra. Or just simply direct your focus there. Breathing in love. I am love. Breathing out love. I breathe out love. I breathe love in from life. I am open to receive it. And I breathe it out back again to life. I am a transmitter of love. I am love, and I understand that love is a vibrational frequency that has so many expressions. I am love when I see a rose, and I see the rose is created from love, and the perfume is an expression of love. I see love when I look at the trees. I see how the nature spirits only know love and how to create from that pure consciousness of love. I breathe in I place my arms around the tree and I breathe in its love and I breathe love back to it. I am love. I am cosmic love. I am divine love. I am the energy of love. I am the way of love. Love is my pathway. Love is my first choice. I choose love. Therefore, I am love. And now we go along to the other base corner, bottom of the pyramid. And here we experience another vibrational frequency. This time it is oneness. Breathing in, I am one. Breathing out, I am one with all that is. I am one in a multidimensional way that transcends time and space, in the oneness that is felt within the energy of love and peace. I am the oneness. I am at one with my Creator. I am at one with all of creation and all that I have created. I am one with the ocean, the wind, the sun, the stars, the grassy fields. I am at one with all of humanity in their highest version, because through the heart consciousness, there is only oneness, the heart of the Creator, the heart of the divine. So I breathe in oneness as I connect to everything that is over all time and space, over the past and the future. There is no separation. There is no division. In the heart of hearts, there is, and it only ever was, oneness. Feel what it might feel like to be so completely at peace, so completely full of cosmic love, that you feel you might be floating in a way where you feel so light and unencumbered by the pressures of being in the human world. But to know that you can always go to this other place where you are a multidimensional being of light, an aspect, a child of God. For a moment, just go back to the vibration of peace and feel at peace again. Breathing in, I am peace. Breathing out, peace. Now back to the love. I am love. I breathe out love. Over to the oneness. I am oneness. I breathe out oneness. And now we're going to sort of combine these frequencies into one formula of peace, love, and oneness. So I want you to feel that golden pyramid move into sort of a circle. It's going to transform into a circle as you visualize the energies of peace and love and oneness starting to move around the circle, slowly at first, and then gathering a momentum until they are all blended together in one beautiful formula of peace and love and oneness. And let that circle around and around and around. And now take that circle of light and place it on your third eye in the middle of your forehead, and also let it come down and sit right in the center of your heart chakra. Ekokoli akatishara kokole akakatira kokora ashira kokoya akakali akakira kokola I am the spirit of peace and love and oneness. I know this, I am this, and so it is, beloved, and so it is. Just take a little time, a few moments to keep breathing slowly and deeply as you breathe in to this formula of peace, love, oneness that is sitting in your heart. And know that you can choose to come back to this space anytime you wish. When the world gets too busy, when the volume of life just feels too loud, when you're finding it hard to be in the silence and the stillness, where you really, really get to know yourself and to know your God self, this is the place to return to. This is home. This is home. Few more deep breaths, breathing in. And while you're doing that, you can tell every cell in your body that you are peace, love, and oneness. Tell every cell, tell every chakra, tell every organ in your body, tell every part of your mind, body, and spirit that you are peace, love, and oneness. And when you breathe that energy into the world, that is what you will also breathe back again. When you breathe in, you receive from life. When you breathe out, you give back to life. You can choose this. So when you're ready, slowly open your eyes. Come back fully into your body, into your chair. Wiggle your toes, your fingers.
Well, that was magnificent, Annwyn. Thank you very much, and thank you to all that participated. And I can imagine you're really appreciating that. So thank you on their behalf to you, Annwyn. And I feel like perhaps, yes, go on.
I'm just saying you're so very welcome. And it felt so beautiful. I was surprised to still see you sitting there in your chair. I thought you might have gone somewhere.
Yeah, well, you did look up a bit late. so yes. Yeah, well, I know you can vibrate off the planet, so I've had to watch that. But other people might be feeling they're vibrating a bit higher. So it's a great way to send people on their way in their day or their evening from living, knowing from that point of alignment. It's going to be interesting to observe how you feel and what you see and how you interact from that space, and you can practice that. And this beautiful thing is this is available. People can come back to it, and people are welcome to share it and like it, of course. I've never said that before, but go ahead, make my day. And Annwyn, you want to? We're gonna close it, I think. But is there anything that you feel you'd like to share that we haven't shared, or any closing statements?
Have I got time to read a little poem?
Oh, please. Yes, of course.
About 2 minutes, a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Because it's a poem I wrote to my son to acknowledge his gift when he was the awakening catalyst. And for people around the planet at the moment, let's face it, is that tiny little virus is the great awakener. This tiny little virus is doing such a huge job if we choose to perceive it in this way. So even though this was about acknowledging that, the passing of my son and how I viewed it differently, I think this is really applicable to everybody in just choosing to look at your life differently and choosing to see the higher version of everything. It's possible. We always have that choice. So it's called How. How can I grieve for a son who gifted me unconditional love? How can I be bereft by loss when I have found so much? How can I regret a single action when I know it was all meant to be? How can I hold pain in my heart when love feels so much better? How can he be apart from me when I understand there is no separation? How can I miss him when he is with me the moment I call him? How can I fail to see him where he is everywhere I put my attention? How can I not hear him when all I have to do is be silent? How can I not feel his hugs when I feel his love surrounding me? How can I feel forgotten when he sends me hawks and rainbows? How can I grieve his death when I know there is no ending? And I think that's the message of today, to end with there is no ending.
Well, thank you, Annwyn. Thank you, Tim, and we honor Tim, and we honor all the people that are in spirit, that are of the listeners to loved ones. So thank you very much for today. It's been an absolute delight, and I know it's a wonderful sharing for everyone. So thank you, Annwyn. It's a real pleasure.
My pleasure.